As I continue my quest to automate as much as possible with AI on my business, my Camino guide, I find I spend a lot of my time manipulating images. I come from a background of photography. I've traveled the world, hiking, climbing, some very remote places, and I've always brought my camera to take some amazing shots and photos. But with AI, things have completely changed. I used to use Photoshop to manipulate tiny little details. Then Midjourney came along. I used Midjourney to generate some pretty crazy and pretty amazing images. Now there's a new king of the hill. It's called Nano Banana by Google. It's completely free. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to create some pretty amazing AI generated images that you can use for thumbnails in your YouTube video to take it to the next level. To get started, we're going to go to Google's AI Studio, which is where Nano Banana is provided. Go over here and click Try Nano Banana. At this point, you have a prompt that you can start entering information. But before you do that, one thing that we do want to change is the aspect ratio. YouTube thumbnails use 6:9, so if you set your aspect ratio to this to start, you'll have the best quality pictures. All right, so now that we've set up our aspect ratio, we're going to drop in a small prompt here and an image. This is just an image that I had of myself lying around, but it gives the AI tool and Nano Banana the ability to kind of generate a person based on somebody in particular, myself. So in this instance, I have a prompt that is a man working on a laptop in a hip Southern California style coffee shop, seated at a table with a latte typing on his laptop. He's directly facing the screen and there is lots of natural light and green plants around. Pretty simple prompt, but what I've done is I've set up the scene as well as a little bit of intention for the camera. It should be forward facing, the person should be looking at the camera. Let's go ahead and run this to start with. All right, it's come back. It's not bad. It's not exactly what I wanted. It didn't follow the prompt directly. I wanted him facing the camera, so let's just go in and say, make the man directly facing the camera. Run the prompt again. The vibe itself is looking pretty good. I like that. Maybe a little bit too much light, but we can focus on that one a little bit later as well. That's looking better. He looks a little angry facing the camera, so why don't we clean that up a little bit here? Make him smiling. And we want to make my character pop a little bit. So let's change his jacket style. This is the normal hoodie that I wear in almost every single video, but let's just add a little bit more color. And change the color of the hoodie to red. Let's go and run that again. This is looking good, but I have to admit, maybe I liked the scaling version of me a little bit more. The smiling's a little bit cheesy, but let's just run with it for right now. One thing I am noticing is the background is very busy. For a YouTube thumbnail, I want it pretty simple and pretty dark. So let's remove the people in the background. And make the lighting a little bit more. Well, it did do everything that I asked it for, but I think we've kind of lost the vibe that what we want. Nice thing is I can go straight back to where I was relatively happy with the process. And I can go in, create a branch, and start working on this separately. Now that it's gone and come back with that, we're back to kind of a clean slate where we were. You'll see that the original conversation I could go to where we started to create things into red, that's hidden behind this original conversation, and now we have kind of a clean slate. We can start from here. I'm going to leave the scaling face. Maybe it suits my style. But let's just make it a little bit more subtle, and we'll go back and remove the people in the background. And since we want a bit of a California feel, let's add a surfboard. Standing upright against the back wall. Now that's looking much better. We have our person in the middle, we have a little bit of subtle background. Maybe that surfboard's a little bit bright, but I think that's okay for right now. The only other thing that I might do is I want it a little bit closer. So I'm gonna zoom in, maybe say 20%. And we'll also add a hat onto me, just there's a lot of sun and I don't have too much hair left. So let's see. So let's add a trucker's hat here. With a surface vibe. All right, Nano Banana did exactly what I asked for. I'm not sure if the hat is my style, but let's run with it right now. I think the only thing that we want to do change is perhaps this hanging plant from the top. It looks like there's a plant growing from my head, and I want to remove that. So let's just say remove the plant hanging from that. All right, that's looking much better. Now we could keep going forever and iterating and changing what we want to get the right idea. And this is the amazing thing with Nano Banana and AI. I can keep experimenting and tweaking as much as I like. If I was doing this in Photoshop, this would take me forever and hours, and honestly, probably beyond my skill level. But with Nano Banana, we did it together in a few minutes. Now that we have our general image and thumbnail that we want, I'm using these images as part of a consistent series on my YouTube channel. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that the thumbnails themselves feel consistent styling, consistent color, those sort of thematic approaches. A great way to be able to do that is I could include something into every single prompt when I create a video, but let's use this system instructions. This is a great way. I'm going to say standard YouTube thumbnail theme. And every YouTube thumbnail that I make as part of this series, I want to have a dark background, not too cluttered. The image style should use low contrast, warm pastel colors, and have a vintage inspired mid-century theme. It should feel like it was taken using a film camera. This vintage inspired theme is very popular right now, so let's take advantage of it. And because I've stored it as a system instruction, if I have multiple system instructions, I can just have more and more inside here. So now I have my system instruction. Let's make one small minor change. Why don't we remove the surfboard? Now you've seen it's gone and re-rendered it with a very slight change on the colors. I was pretty close to my thematic style already, but you can certainly see that the contrast has been softened. There's a little bit of grain in the images, so it feels like it's an old school photo. So if I click in and have a look at this, you can see this is the one with the theme added. It's slightly grainy here and feels like it's just a bit more old vibe. The next thing you do is add some type of text to your thumbnails. I haven't had much luck with inside Nano Banana or any AI tool really to add text. I can certainly try it. So let's see what Nano Banana can do. Now you see here, it's done a pretty good job at adding the text. I might want to drop shadow and maybe I want it a little larger. Let's see if it handles this one. So now the drop shadow doesn't look too bad. It's done a pretty good job, but you'll see where things are starting to get a little tricky. I asked for 30% larger font, didn't really do that. If I start to play around with the font in general and the text, Nano Banana is probably the best that I've found from these AI image generation tools for handling text. But when you try and get very specific information on where to move the text, this is where things start to fall apart a little bit. So let's say I wanted the text mind blown on a single line and at the bottom. So you'll see here, this is where Nano Banana and any of these AI image generating tools start to fall short. I gave it a specific prompt to move the text and it really couldn't handle it. So my suggestion is don't use Nano Banana to add text and font. Now these thumbnails are perfectly usable, but if I wanted to do something a little bit more different, a little bit more creative with it, I would like to use another tool. And for me, that tool is Adobe Express. Now jumping over into Adobe Express, I'm going to choose to create a YouTube thumbnail And then I'm going to upload that image as the background. Okay, I have my image inside here. Let me just resize it to fit. Now I can add text as you would expect. So I'm just going to go here and say mind blown. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Just change the color. Let's make it bold. Bold always works the most for YouTube. Let's make it a little bit bigger. It's looking better already. Let's add a classic bit of blurred background. Looking pretty good. Let's move our text down here. Everything's looking as planned. Now that's pretty good. I could use that just as is. Looks great. One of the nice trends that we see often is to add it a little bit more interactive and a little bit more depth. Some of this might be hidden behind, say, the character or the person's face. I can use AI again and Adobe Express to do that for me quite easily. What I'll do is I'm going to duplicate this initial layer. So now that I have two versions of this layer, what I want to do is I want to remove the background, so I'm just left with the character and the person. So I can use Adobe Express's AI remove background tool. So instead of using something like Photoshop where I would crop all of those things out, I can just use the AI tool. And you'll see here, it's done a pretty good job of moving all of that around. So what I can do now is I can overlay that directly on top of the person, then take my mind blown text layer, move it underneath that new layer that we just created with the background removed, move it around, and there you go. We've instantly got a nice depth of field video that looks modern, very cool and very stylish, and I'm pretty well ready. All I need to do is export that and download it, and there is my video.